Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming at you with another D&D campaign recap video. This is to keep you informed of what's going on in the game so that you can kind of follow along with us. Plus, it gives me a way to kind of share what I'm doing with my D&D game, but we're not recording the games and we're not streaming them or showing you videos. So this is one way you can keep up with the videos now, or the campaign as well. Plus, it gives me a tool to go back and look and remember what I said or what we did to kind of keep the backstory alive as well. And it kind of gives you an idea of my thought process and how I'm running the game and how the players are acting in the game. All right, so as you know, we've got 6 players in the game. We have a high elf monk called Cameron. We have a halfling swashbuckler rogue called Leighton. We have a dwarven cleric called Ulfgar. And then we've got a human fighter named Griff, and another fighter with a knight path, Sir Kiran. And then we have a half-elf wizard, illusionist, called Noctis. And these guys I've already gone through. I've already did a recap on the first 2 videos where they had just met Meepo. Okay, so there's been a gap in my after-action comments. Basically, I forgot to do it last week. So this week, we're going to do 2 in 1. It's a bonus episode. Yeah, you get 2 episodes. We get our 3rd game and our 4th game. So this video might go on for more than about 30 minutes, probably. So just stick with me. Okay, so we start the 3rd episode with them having just met Meepo. He's a kobold dragon tamer. And they promise to help him recover his white dragon. So Meepo takes this party to meet his queen, Isidril. Okay, so they meet Isidril, and Isidril puts them up in housing and basically says, appreciate you guys helping us out. If you bring this dragon back to us, you'll be able to pick some items off of my table of goodies, basically. And she has some magic items and some gizmos and some potions and scrolls and stuff like that. So the party agree. So they do like a short rest. And they decide that they're going to follow Meepo, because Meepo is going to be their guide. And Meepo leads them the back way into the goblin area, where the front way into the goblin area, which is the direct path, is blocked off with like traps and guards, and they don't want to go straight into the goblins, so they're going to go back around the back way. All well and good. So Meepo takes them back down this hallway and says, this is the way to the goblins. Now, I don't really know this way. I've never been this way, but when we find the dragon, I'll be there to to wrangle it or to tame it or whatever. And if we run into anything to fight or whatever, you guys do the fighting, because he's just a little kobold. So they discover a room, which, okay, first of all, they find dust on the floor in this whole area, and there are footprints of like 4 people that have gone through here. Now, they know that there are 4 people in the adventuring party that they're also here to rescue, because they've been here for over a month, and so they think that maybe they're kidnapped or trapped or killed or whatever. So they're here to try to rescue them. There's a ranger, there's a paladin, there is a fighter, and a wizard. The fighter and the wizard are brother and sister, and their mother had promised them riches if they would go and recover them. Okay. So they see these footprints in the dust, so they know they're going in the right direction. Isidril also commented that yes, they were here before, they were very friendly, they wanted to know about the tree, and so they were sent through the goblin area to go find the tree. So, okay, so they go follow these trails, but those trails lead them to this one room, and this room's got a fountain in it, and it's got some inscriptions in Draconic, where nobody reads Draconic except for Meepo. So Meepo's actually proving his worth by, hey, I can at least read Draconic. I don't speak good Common, right? So, but I can kind of give you a gist or an idea of what it says, or I can just read it out loud or whatever. So they go, hey, yeah, just read that. So he reads it out loud, which activates the magical fountain, and it spews out this Kool-Aid red liquid, right? And one of the dwarf goes up and tastes it, and it burns his mouth like hot spices, and there's actually smoke coming out of his mouth. So the half-orc says, "Ooh, that's probably some kind of fire-breathing potion or something. Let me scoop it up." So he scoops it up and drinks it, right? And then he tests it, like, is it fire breath? Yes, it is fire breath. So he was going to have fire breathing, unlimited, every round. He could just spend an action, breathe fire for a whole hour, So he could have just walked in through the goblin, just breathing fire on everybody, if that's what he wanted to do. Okay, so he goes, all right, cool, I got fire breath. And then there's a door across from the fountain, which has some skeletal dragons on the door. And the party looks at it and they're not sure. But there's also an inscription in Draconic. One of the reasons why all the inscriptions are in Draconic is because the original owners of this castle were a dragon cultist group. So this was a dragon cult castle. So everything's in Draconic. So he says, yeah, I can read it. And he tries to explain it to them. They can't really figure it out. But basically the gist of it was, and they figured it out, but basically the gist of it is you have to dispel the door. Not dispel the door. You have to turn the door. Like you have to have some kind of undead turning ability on the door. The door was cold to the touch. It was like the closer you got, the colder it was. So they thought they can, hey, if we pour some of this liquid that's hot, like spicy, on the door, maybe they pour some of the liquid, it just freezes because it's like a refrigerator door. So one of the party members, the half-orc, he says, I'm just going to push on the door. Okay. So he pushes on the door, and lo and behold, the door was trapped, and there was a blade that came out of the roof and tried to cut his arms off. His armor stopped the damage. I think I might have already went over this, but I'm going to keep going. Okay, so it didn't cut his arms off. So the thief got up there and was able to disarm the trap. I say thief, but it's really the swashbuckler rogue halfling. He goes up there and disarms the trap. Nobody has turn undead because you don't get that till second level. And these guys are all first level, except for Noctis. Noctis was born and raised in Thay by a necromancer, and somehow when he was born, he got the ability to turn undead once per day at 60% chance. And he earned that or rolled that randomly in the background character generator that I'm using, which is Heroes of Legend. Okay, so he gets this ability. He says, I'll try it. And he rolled less than a 60, so he got the 60%, which caused the door to open up. When the door opened, they went inside. There was a candle in there, and there was a whistle and a flask, and that was all in like dwarven runes. When they went up close to the altar or whatever this was, the skeletons popped out of these sarcophaguses that were leaning up against the walls. They fought the skeletons, bop, 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 bop. And they dispatched the skeletons pretty quickly because there's 6 of them. There's 6 players, plus Meepo. And not only is there 6 of them, hold on, Stram Bloodwound is with them, and he's the squire to the half-orc knight, right? So really there's 7.5 of them, 7 plus Meepo. Well, they kill the skeletons pretty quickly, which there was 5 or 6. And most of them are like a bunch of them have like Morning Stars and Warhammers and stuff, so they were doing double damage on these skeletons. And okay, well, they found out that the candle was a continual flame, so the rogue is now able to carry that in a pocket. So he's got like a flashlight shining out of his pocket. And then the whistle was, they figured out, was a summon undead whistle. So they can blow the whistle and some dead creature will be raised. But everybody's got some kind of moral dilemma, like, let's not use that, that's evil. Summoning undead is evil. Okay. And then there was... so they're holding on to it for emergencies, or maybe to give to their church or something. Basically, they're just holding on to it. It's magic. They might be able to sell it or turn it into a library or something. And then they also have the continual flame. The flask. The flask had resistance to fire potion in it. Okay, so they're like, cool. So let's go up the hall. So they go up the hall. There's this long hall that has many doors, and most of those are cells. And before they get past the cells, a bunch of rats jump out of the cells to attack the players, and they kill the rats, but the halfling is down to like 1 hit point. And so they figure, you know what, we probably should rest. So they rest in this area, but guess what? A short rest is an hour long. The fire breath, gone. Okay, so then they get to the next room, but the next room has 2 pits in it, and they're open, and they're pinned open, like somebody's already been through here and forced them open and kept them open, like with stakes or something. So they were able to step around the pits because they don't block the hallways. They were just in the way, but you could like step across the corner. So they were able to get past the first pit. There was another fountain. This fountain was also written in Draconic, and it had some kind of like gas emitter or some kind of, it had some tubing or whatever, and they were thinking, okay, let's not mess with that. It might be trapped or something like that, which might or might not have been smart. But there was another door, and that had a pit right in front of it, and there's no way that they could go to the door without falling into the pit, basically. So what they did was they unjammed the pit, let it close, and then used the thief to get in there and jam it closed so they could stand on it. So that he disabled the trap. So they were able to stand on it, open the door, go in. When they went in, they were ambushed by this one huge rat, right? It's a 10 by 10 rat. And with a bunch of giant rats, which are only small or tiny, not tiny, but small or, maybe they're medium. I'm not sure, but they're smaller. Well, not Noctis, but the monk, the elf monk, was the first one in the room, and he got hit by the 4 rats, passed out, so he's making death saving throws. The giant rat attacks him, with advantage and all that jazz, and forces him to lose death saves like instantly. But luckily they were able to kill some rats, get into the room, do a spare the dying on him so that he didn't die. They killed the giant rats and the mama rat, and they found out that there's a ranger body in there, and he was dead. Right, so they looted him. They got the studded leather that went to the rogue, and some daggers and some gems and his ring and stuff like that. So a bow and some arrows. So they looted the ranger. Okay, they have to do that. And I think that right there was the end of that episode. But then they decided they're going to go back that was the end of 2, I think. So I might be jumping ahead. So we get back to week 3, and there was 2 players out that session. So we only had 4 players. And they said instead of pushing forward to go to where the goblins are, okay, with the 4 players, they decided, let's go ahead and press forward, follow these guys, see how far we can get. And they go and they find a door with some nails sticking out of it, right? And the rogue says, okay, hey, look, there's some nails here, so be careful. So the orc like opens the door really quietly, very slowly, and he can see that there's a bell that if a normal person just came in and just opened the door, the bell would go off. But so he reaches up and holds the bell so it doesn't make a loud noise, and they open it up, and they see this hallway full of caltrops. So they start going through, picking up these caltrops, making a path, and as soon as they do, like get about 5 or 10 feet, I don't remember, these goblins on the end of the hallway behind a short wall jump up and start shooting their bows. And the players said, screw it, we're just going to run. So they just charged into the goblins and fight over this little wall and stuff like that. It wasn't that far, maybe 10, 15 feet more to go. And the caltrops really didn't slow them down. And because you can go half pace over the caltrops and not have to make a saving throw. Or you can go full speed and make a saving throw. So by going half pace, they were still able to get up to the wall and beat these goblins down. So they fight the goblins, they kill the goblins. And then they're like, there's one more door, and they hear more noises or more goblin sounds through that second door. So they send the thief through, he, with his couple of hit points, and he sees that there are goblins around the corner shooting at these target practice dummies. And so he goes back and tells his buddies, and the human fighter, Griff, decides to take a door off the hinge, and he's going to go around using the door as a shield. Yeah, so he took the door, which I thought was a good idea, and he comes, because he knew they were going to shoot at him with arrows, so he comes around. So I basically gave him +5 armor class, like full cover, right? And 3/4 cover, whatever that cover is. So basically for the door, and he runs around, and they shoot at him, all 5 of them, because they were holding their action, because they knew they were coming. So they all shoot at him, and I think one of them got a crit or something. And remember, these characters are first level. So I say, okay, he gets hit in either the foot or the hand or something, because he's holding this door. And he took enough damage to be knocked out. So he falls forward and lands on the door. Yeah. So the halfling like hides behind his body, lays prone, throws some daggers, and then everybody else kind of runs in. The half-orc runs in, because even if they shoot him, which they do, they miss. And so they get to the goblins and they defeat them, and then they bring their buddy back to life. It's time for another rest. Because every short rest, the fighter gets second wind. So he's able to, even if he's out of hit dice, he can still do a short rest. Or after a short rest, he can still do a second wind. I read somewhere that you have to have at least 1 hit point to benefit from a rest, but I don't remember where I read that, so I just gave it to him. I just said, whatever, you guys can just rest and get your hit points back. I'm going to have to do some research on that, because I think the rules say somewhere, but maybe I'll just have to find it somewhere, that you have to have at least 1 hit point to benefit from a rest. But I don't remember. So I gave it to him. And so they decide, okay, let's not go this way anymore, because we're going to get our asses killed. So let's go. And because the other 2 players aren't there, they're thinking, because they're out of spells anyway, because both the players that weren't there is the cleric and the wizard. And so I said, hey, they don't have any spells anyway, so they're just going to hide in the back or rest, be the follow-up, stay with Meepo in the back. So they said, you know what, why don't we take that key that we bought from Isidril, and let's go that other way where the dragon door's at. And so they go back, and they go through the dragon door. Well, which is like got a magical lock and a mechanical lock, and the only way through is with the key. But when they bought the key, it was the right key. They open up the door, they go in. There's a globe in there that when you get close to it, it makes this horrible noise, and everybody has to make a fear check. And basically, Griff, the human fighter, fails, and so he and Meepo run out of the keep. So he's outside looking in, and he keeps trying to come in and keeps failing his saves. It's a simple save. It was like a 10 or something, and he keeps rolling like 5s, and so he doesn't make it in. So what they do is they take their hammers or whatever and they beat on this globe and they destroy it, and the sound goes away. And then he's able to come back in. And then that's one room. Then they go through the door to the next room. There's a dragon statue, and it had a riddle. And once they answered the riddle, a secret door was exposed, and the riddle was something easy. And they figured it out before I even finished the riddle, But as soon as they said the stars or whatever, the secret door appeared. And so they go through the secret door, and that leads to a hallway with a bunch of alcoves and a pit at the far end, and they find the footprints of something really small, like with chicken feet, jumped into the pit. So they look in the pit. It's a pit full of spikes. On the other side of the pit is a glowing green room with a sarcophagus in the middle of it. So they just decide, what the hell, we'll just leap the pit. It's only 10 feet. And so they run and jump across the pit. Everyone's got over a 10 strength. So in D&D, as long as you got a 10-foot run, you can jump your strength and distance. So everybody could run and jump at least 11 feet to get to the other side. So everybody's on the other side. And as soon as they get to the other side, they get attacked by a Quasit, which is a small little demon. And guess what? It tried to cause fear on Griff. I think it failed. Maybe it succeeded. I don't remember. But as soon as it did, I think the monk or the elf monk or the rogue struck it. They attacked it because we're getting attacked by a demon. So they attack it. And as soon as they hit it, it starts cackling. You freed me. I don't have to stay here and fight anymore. Basically, he's saying, hell, I'm out of here. Right? But he's like, yeah, I don't have to stay and defend the dragon priest anymore. Thank you. He goes invisible. And then he flies out. And Stram hasn't jumped across the pit yet. He's waving his sword in the air, trying to fight this invisible bat creature that flies past him and out of the keep. And so there's that. Now, the green light that was in the room was actually a torch with a green flame. Yes, I said it. Green flame. That was also a continual light. So now they've got a torch and a candle. And I made a ruling that because the torch doesn't give off any heat, you can hold it in the same hand that you're holding your shield. Normally you can't hold the shield and have a torch in your hand at the same time because the fire would just burn your shield. So I said, but because this thing doesn't give off any heat, it's just light, you can hold it in the same hand that you're grasping your shield strap with. Okay, so they see this sarcophagus. It's a big ornate dragon-looking thing, and they decide, okay, let's open this thing up. There's got to be something valuable in here. They're true neutral. Mike the other night, or our last game, said, all PCs are lawful and neutral. I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. So or chaotic neutral. So they bust these little metal latches around it, and they push the sarcophagus lid off. So they push the sarcophagus lid off, and inside there's like this undead dragon priest, and he's getting up. So they see, oh, no, stab, bash, smash. They kill him, but he regenerates. So he's regenerating and he's getting up, and they go, what the hell? Bash, smash. And then the rogue was going to light a torch and then drop oil on him and then light the torch onto the oil. And somebody came up with the idea, just throw the oil on him and then light the oil. It'll be faster. Because I was going to make him pull the oil out as an action and pull the torch out as an action, because they don't have any light they don't have any heat sources. So they were going to have to pull their tinderbox out and their torch and the oil. And I was like, no, all you got to do is just pull the tinderbox out, drop the oil on them, light it, and then you're good. And so he does that. He burns it. They bash it down. It doesn't regenerate, doesn't come back to life. All right, so they killed the dragon priest, which never got a chance to do anything. He was always unconscious or beat up. He regenerated one time. They beat him down again. Yeah, so he didn't really get a chance to do anything. His sarcophagus did have a bunch of loot. They were able to get a bunch of silver and gold out of there. And then they say, okay, we're done. That was the end of session 3. Session 4, the latest game, we started in that room. And basically they gave the new players, the players that missed this session, they gave them an update of what's going on. And then they said, okay, we finished this area because there wasn't another door there. So they said, let's go back the other way, go back the way the goblins, where we killed the goblins, and then let's press on because there was a couple more doors. They opened one door. It's a storage room, nothing in it. They open another door, and it leads to a hallway. And in this hallway, there's a bunch of, make a long story short, there was a room with some goblins in it. They killed the goblins. There was a room that they were, that was locked. They opened it up, and on the other side was Calcrix, which is the white dragon. He had tore up the room, destroyed basically everything in the room, made a nest behind a table. Now, Calcrix is only a medium creature, so he's about the size of a large hunting or a small hunting cat, like a lynx or a large dog or something like that. He hasn't, with wings and a tail and everything. So he's a dragon, but he's only a wormling, right? So he's super small. So they try to convince him, hey, we're not here to hurt you. We're here to free you, to rescue you, basically. And he's like, I don't need any rescuing. I'm going to go kill all these goblins, right? I'm going to, they were the ones that imprisoned me in here. I'm going to kill them, and we're going to wipe them out. And so he's like walking around there. The players are like, okay, go kill the goblins. Super. Do our work for us. Nice. And so he's getting ready to go wipe the goblins out. He turns down the hallway and he's going, and he said, oh, by the way, do you know this kobold here? Meepo? And Meepo's like, you throw me under the bus, And the dragon turns around and walks back like, okay, let me check this kobold out. Yeah, I remember that guy. He breathes cold on him, freezes him like a popsicle. He's dead. He does 5d8 breath weapon damage. I only rolled 2. I rolled a total of 12 points of damage. The kobold's only got 7. He's dead. I still have 3 more dice to roll. I didn't bother. And so Meepo's like, ah, and he's frozen. And so as soon as that happened, they're like, oh crap, he just killed Meepo. And then they all hold their action like, if he attacks us, we're gonna smack him down, because they didn't want to fight a dragon. And then the dragon said, well, you're friends of Meepo, I'm going to kill you too. And so he attacks the players, breathes on them. A couple of them are frozen to like 2 hit points. They're barely alive. And they all just pop, 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 pop. After like 1 or 2 rounds, the dragon's dead. It's a wormling. It's only got like 30 hit points or something like that. So they kill it. One of the players goes, oh, I'm going to take his head. Really? You're going to sit here and spend some time looting the body. I mean, the body itself. Well, they are chaotic neutral. And so they drag him back into his room where they're going to sever the head and strip the scales off of this thing. They're basically going to just like take this body of this dragon and dismantle it. But in the process, Noctis says, you know what? There's a couple more doors down on the end of the hall. I'm going to go check them out. The rogue Leighton says, you know what, I'm going to go down the hall. We're going to go hang out and we're going to check out these other doors. So they go down the hall, and then one of the doors opens up and a bunch of goblins are in the room. They heard the fight with the dragon. They were coming to investigate. They open the door. Noctis is like, oh crap, sleep. He can't sleep in the room. One goblin passes out. But it was enough for him to be able to get out. So he gets out, the rest of the party runs down the hall, and they kill the goblins, right? So, okay, no problem. And then another room full of goblins, they wipe out. And then they say, okay, let's go this other way. So they go the other way, and it just leads them right back to the room where the dragon was at. So they said, okay, let's not go that way. It's got a pit trap. Let's come back around this way. So there's a lot of this going on. So they go down this other hall, which there's a door on the left-hand side. And when they get close to it, I say, okay, you hear a bunch of goblins on the other side, like dozens, up to maybe 40 goblins on the other side. You even hear baby goblins crying, and they're like, okay, let's douse our lights, which they only have the two. They got the candle and the torch. They douse it. They give the squire the torch because he's actually the only one carrying a shield, I think. So he puts it under the shield and he's hiding the light. And once they do that, then they can see the purple light coming out from underneath the door. So they go, oh, okay, cool. We can see in, we'll be able to see. So Leighton just cracks the door open and they say, okay, well, we don't really see much, but we do see. And then Griff says, hey, when you crack the door open, you should be able to see down the other way with a hinge. So they look through there and basically they see it's a giant room with a bunch of babies and non-combatants and stuff. So they decide, let's not go in there. Let's not kill the non-combatants. Let's be good people. And so they say, let's go the other way. And they fall back to rest. I think they rest. And then they get ready to go back in the final door. There's a door that leads to like this rounded room, because you can tell because the door was rounded. But on the way there, 4 hobgoblins ambushed them in the hallway. Not ambushed them, they just like met each other. And so there's a fight ensued, and the hobgoblins are like, hey, we've got this special ability that we can like get extra 2d6 damage whenever we attack you every turn, as long as you're next to one of our enemies or one of our allies. They never got to use the ability. I had 4 of them attack the half-orc, and they all missed. That's all right. And then they got killed. Took a couple of rounds, they were dead. Okay, so they looted the bodies because they're wearing chainmail and they have shields and long swords, so they just loot their bodies, which is cool. I mean, they're gathering. Not only are they gathering gold coins and stuff, but they're gathering like armor that they can take back to town maybe and sell it. And I'm okay with that. So then they go through the last door, and the last door has a hobgoblin and a goblin shaman in there, and a big pit in the floor. And they said, okay, let's rush in and take out that shaman. They had to run around the pit to get to the shaman, and then they went straight to the hobgoblin. And as soon as they did, the little potted plant that's sitting next to his throne is a twig blight. It jumps up and attacks, and they just firebolt the twig blight. It dies. They smack the goblin shaman a couple of times. They hit him once, like boom, 9 points of damage. And I was like, oh man, he's only a goblin. He's got 7 hit points or whatever. You killed him. And then I noticed in the book, this is me, I noticed in the book, oh, it says he has 10. He's not dead. And then they said, okay, I hit him again. Boom, killed him. And then they killed the chief. The chief was like, he was pretty tough. He's in scale. He had like armor class 19. They took him out. Yeah, they're making short work of these, but this is the first level. What are you going to do, right? But now there's a pit that leads down, and it's got vines along the side that makes it easy to climb down. And there's like a purple glow coming from down there. So they look and say, well, it's like 80 feet down. They're like, okay, let's climb down. So they start climbing down, and they get to the bottom, and there's this big chamber. In the chamber, there was purple moss growing on the walls in the ceiling, so that it's like luminescent, so it's glowing, so everybody can see everything. There was 2 skeletons tending a garden with shovels and a wheelbarrow, and so they just run up to a couple of them, a couple of the guys. The rest of them are all in the back, like holding their actions, but 2 of them run up and start bashing on these skeletons. They're like, undead, it's evil. They charge forward and bah, bah, bah. Skeletons didn't have a chance. They just ran up and got beat down. And as soon as the skeletons got beat down and killed, I mean, they hit him. One of them was hit for like 30 points of damage because they get like double damage with their hammers and stuff. So yeah, one guy's using like this two-hand boom and just. I said, okay, this guy just the bones just fragment and go every direction. But they're tending a garden, and in the garden are these twig blights that just pop out and start fighting. Twig blights are like the weakest thing in the world, and they just kill them. In a previous campaign, in my Phandelver campaign, the very first game we ever ran, there was a group of twig blights that attacked the party and almost killed them, but that was because there was like 12 twig blights and only 4 or 5 players. And now you've got like 7 players because of the NPC that's accompanying them, and 2 twig blights. So yeah, they wiped them out. And then that's where we stopped. I said, okay, you guys leveled up. There's a couple of them they're all level 2 now. And they're going to take a long rest in this room so that they can recuperate some of their spells and hit points and stuff like that. And then move on throughout the rest of the dungeon. So that's where we're at. We're now on the Grove level. We've left the Citadel level. We're now in the Grove level. And they're in the first room with the dead skeletons, the wheelbarrow, the shovels, and the dead twig blights. There's a couple of doors and a cavernous tunnel going one way. And that's where we're going to pick up in the next game. All right, guys, thanks for coming out and checking this out. We're running the Sunless Citadel, so we're having a good time. It's fun. All right. And once we do that, I think we're going to go on to the Forge of Fury or something like that. I think that's the next adventure. Originally, this is just a little off topic right here. Originally, the Sunless Citadel was back when 3rd edition first came out. It was like their pilot scenario, their pilot adventure. And when it was released, it was the first part of like a 7-part campaign. The first 2 of that campaign is in the Tales of the Yawning Portal. You got the Sunless Citadel, and you have the Forge and the Fury, Fire and the Forge, or something like that. And those are the first 2 adventures in the Tales of the Yawning Portal. But the other 5 adventures are not. Luckily, I have them. I have the old 3rd edition adventures, but they're not converted to 5th edition. So what I need to do is I need to go and start, pencil whipping the adventure into a 5th edition, because I want to run that whole campaign, because the way those adventures will get you from starting at Sunless Citadel first level, the final adventure is like for 17th level adventurers. It's supposed to be like 17 to 20 on that last adventure. And that's going to be, I've never run anything past like the 3rd module. So hopefully with 5th edition, we can get all these things done. That'll be an epic campaign, I think. It'll be pretty awesome, I think. I was going to just run everything out of the Yawning Portal, but really those are all kind of like one-off adventures, and they don't really tie in very well together. They're great for squeezing into a campaign, but I'm going to actually run the Sunless Citadel campaign adventures. The first 2 already converted into 5th edition, so I'm going to have a lot of time because we're only halfway through the first module. There's also the Grove level, and once they go through the Grove level, then we'll jump into the Dwarven Fire Forge thing. And in that whole process, I'll be taking that 3rd module or the 4th module, and I'll be tweaking it into 5th edition. All right, guys. Come back and check out the rest of our recaps. I'll see you then.